Hi, my name is Ryan T. Husk.
Hi, I'm Kit Bowen.
Welcome to the Creation Entertainment Podcast. Today, we've got an incredible show for you, starting with our co-CEO, Adam Malin, interviewing incredible genre writer, producer, Ronald D. They talk about his early life all the way through his career, starting with The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Carnival, Roswell. It's unbelievable. I think Ronald D. Moore is one of the greatest writers of our time.
And then on the Pop Culture Cinema Squad, Adam and I talk about the FX series Fargo, specifically the last season that just aired last year, the 5th season, from creator Noah Hawley, who's also got a new show coming up, Alien Earth, that we cannot wait to watch. I think it's premiering really soon. So can't wait for that.
Wow, the show is going to be amazing. Everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. And check us out at creationent.com. That's creationent.com. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and we'll see you in a bit.
Hi, folks. In a career spanning over 4 decades, Ronald D. Moore has established himself as a premier American storyteller and showrunner. Through projects that span the gamut of historical fantasy, speculative science fiction, horror, and martial space war epics, Ron has consistently raised the bar on television narrative, both through development, writing, and the team of amazing production artisans he gathers for his endeavors. Although also a film veteran, having co-authored 2 Star Trek movies, one of which is considered one of the finest in the canon, Ron has mainly used his medium of television to tell long arc tales that challenge our understanding of the human condition, sometimes delighting us, sometimes horrifying and terrifying us, but always entertaining us with the breadth of his narrative vision. I hope you enjoy my wide-ranging discussion with Ron as much as I did talking to this unique and enduring talent. I'm Adam Malin, and this is the Creation Entertainment Podcast interview. Ronald D. Moore, welcome to the Creation Entertainment Podcast interview.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Great seeing you again, and you and I have a fairly long history. We've known each other, I want to say, for 3 decades. Is it possible?
Something like that. Yeah, it must be.
It's been a long time, and I have a bunch of questions for you that I've never asked you. So if you'll bear with me, I'm curious about a lot of things. But first of all, I know from what I'm told, and some of my information may be wrong, so correct me if it is, but you originally went to school for government?
Yes, I wanted to be a lawyer, so I went to Cornell undergrad, and their sort of pre-law, program was government, so that was what I studied there.
Yeah. And is it true you were in the ROTC?
I was in Navy ROTC. I got a scholarship, and I made it until my senior year, and managed to stop going to class and flunk out 1 semester before I graduated. So
oh, wow.
The whole thing just kind of imploded on. I just wasn't happy, and I sort of stopped. If you don't go to class every single day and you party all night, every single night, eventually the university comes to you and says, you're not really enrolled here anyway. You might as well go do something else. So that's what I did.
College wasn't that easy. I mean, I was pre-med for all of, I think, a year, and I got buried, and I was working my ass off day and night. So, it's easy.
Yeah, and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and but I realized I really wanted to be Perry Mason. I really wanted to make big dramatic courtroom speeches, and that was what I thought a lawyer was what I had seen on TV, and that really wasn't what all the law students were doing and what that study was, and it wasn't really what it meant to practice law. And so I just realized I was more in love with drama and show business and, creating dramatic scenes than I was really in being an actual lawyer.
Well, being an attorney is one bit theater, probably.
And I mean, would a TV show like Suits, would that be a true representation of what it is to be a high-powered attorney, or is it just BS?
I think it's all, I think there's certainly a lot of lawyers that work in television over the years, from LA Law to Suits, and I think they all bring a lot of truth to it, even, the practice and Ally McBeal. There's a lot of real lawyers work on those shows, but it's all
Yeah.
heightened. There's a tremendous amount of time spent in, researching cases and drudgery in law libraries and writing endless briefs, and just there's a lot, mountains of paperwork beyond the sort of cool stuff that, TV likes to be in the courtroom and tries to, and that's where the juice is, and that's where the fun is, and, or the negotiations behind the scenes. But a big chunk of the life of a lawyer is spent in really difficult,
Yeah.
drudgery, bureaucratic stuff.
Yeah, it can get pretty bogged down now. Is it true that you were stationed on a ship?
As when you're in Navy ROTC in the summers, you go on what they call summer cruises. So I spent
Yeah.
a summer on a frigate off the coast of Florida, the USS WS Sims, which was an amazing adventure for a summer. Then another summer, I spent time on a nuclear submarine off Charleston,
Oh,
the
wow.
Seahorse, and then I spent some time with the Marines out at Cherry Point, and they sort of show you all the different skills and professions, or a big overview of what's in the Navy, as part of your TC program. So as a result, I got to go do some amazing things and stand on decks of aircraft carriers and watch takeoffs and landings, and stand at the controls of a nuclear submarine underway. And there was amazing adventures that I got to do.
I mean, so that doesn't really seem like that much of a surprise to me, given your affinity for martial situations like Galactica. It really felt like it was from the viewpoint of a service person. And I think you imparted a lot of that kind of quality to it, as well as a lot of respect for being a person in the services. So that's kind of part of your DNA, huh?
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from my father. It came from my father, who passed away a few years ago, but he was a Marine Corps officer, an infantry officer in Vietnam. And he had a library filled with military history books. And as a kid, I was always in there taking books off the shelves and reading them, and had a fascination with it, which dovetailed really well with my love of Star Trek at that same period of time, which is a Navy ship, and captains and commanders. And so I was starting to fall in love with naval terminology and naval nomenclature, just as a person interested in language. And then I was reading the real history, and then I was watching fictionalized space, military organizations. And so it became this sort of lifelong love. And so it felt like that's what I wanted to at least do for a while. So that's why I applied to ROTC. But once I got involved with the military, it really wasn't a good fit. I wasn't someone who really fit well into that organization. I don't like taking orders from people. I don't like getting up really early in the morning. These are two of the fundamental requirements of being in the military. I found that I admire it and I respect it, and I'm fascinated with it more than I fit into it comfortably and was like a part of it. So
But
I'm still interested in it.
it's ironic because as a showrunner, you probably pull crazy hours too. So it's not like you don't have to get way the hell up early in the morning, to pull out, captaining a show. It's crazy. Um, Rumor has it that you managed to get your way onto a Star Trek set at one point before you were even working on Star Trek. What's that story all about?
Yeah, I was in LA after I flunked out of college and moved to LA with a friend of mine to try to start life over and be a writer. And 2, 3 years into that, I had tried various stabs at spec scripts with no real success, and not a lot of discipline, frankly. I would start and stop a lot of scripts. And then I started dating this girl, because a good story has that line in it. And she found out that I was a Star Trek fan. And she said, "Oh, well, I have a connection to Star Trek The Next Generation," which was in its second season at that point.
Right.
I was like, "Really?" And yeah, she said she had been an assistant in the casting department, and she still knew people over there. And she said, they have a set tour every week. And if you know somebody, you can get on the set tour. And I could make a call. And I was like, "Oh my God, that'd be unbelievable." So she made a call, got me on the set tour, and I decided that was my break. I didn't know what I couldn't do. So I just decided to do it. And I wrote a script, and brought it with me and convinced the guy that was giving me the set tour, Richard Arnold, to take a look at the script. And he sort of said he didn't want to at first, but then kind of reluctantly agreed, read it, liked it, gave it to a woman who became my first agent. Agent submitted it to the show, sat in the slush file for about 7 months. And then Michael Piller came aboard to start running the writer's room in the third season. Was desperate for material, started going through the slush pile, found my script, bought it, produced it, asked me to do a second one, did a second one, and then he brought me on staff, and I was there for 10 years. It was like an amazing, amazing story. You know, I was very lucky. I had the right script at the right time, and I had, without realizing it, I'd spent most of my life preparing to write for that show. You know, I lived and breathed Star Trek for so long. I had read almost all the novels that were available whenever I could grab one. I had seen the technical manuals. I knew the scripts. I knew the stories and the episodes backward and forwards. There were some I could probably to this day sit down, I bet, and write a actual script by memory. So I really understood what Trek was, and I was watching Next Generation very closely. So when the moment came, I was ready for it. I was ready to like, yes, I understand this universe and I can do it.
I mean, life, it's amazing. Life is so full of serendipity. First of all, handing off a script to Richard Arnold is itself an incredible story. And many of our viewers know Richard. We personally, had relationships with Richard for over many decades. And he also was kind of unofficially Gene Roddenberry's sort of right-hand guy, along with Sue Sackett. But Richard really was almost like a kind of a personal uh, protege to, in some manners, or certainly an assistant to Gene. And this was as Gene's health was starting to decline.
Yeah, when I came aboard third season, he was still involved in the show. He was still actively like the showrunner
Yeah,
and would throw out scripts and he was writing others. And there had been a lot of chaos in the first 2 seasons of the show. And the third
chaos.
season was still chaotic, but it was starting to settle a little bit when Michael came in.
Yeah.
And Gene, in the fourth season, got less involved. And Michael started doing more and more running the writers completely without Gene. And then Gene's health was declining, and then I think he passed away in the fifth
Yeah.
season.
Let's talk about Michael Piller. He seems to have been an inspirational force to a whole generation of writers that came under his purview. He kind of reimagined the writer's room for Star Trek and was, I think, a seminal influence on a lot of you guys. Just kind of give us some background on Michael and your experiences with him, and how you began to integrate into the show.
Michael was a really interesting guy. He was a unique figure. His background had been he was a network censor at one point, and he was a network executive, and then
That's
he
funny.
transitioned to writing. He did like Simon and Simon and a couple other shows before he got Star Trek. And Michael was socially very awkward but very self-aware of his awkwardness. And Michael will tell you that, I am very bad in social situations. I don't know how to give you good notes, so I'm just going to give you bad notes. He would say that to me. And his sort of instincts as a network suit still made him do things like write memos to the staff instead of just telling you something. So it was just there were certain ways that he wasn't a people person, let's put it that way. But he was also guileless. Like there was no BS with Michael. When Michael said something, it's what he thought. He never played games. He was never like manipulating things. He had no political instincts or interest in any political machinations on the show. He just cared about the writing. And the biggest thing he did to change the nature of the show was he said, the show is going to be about the characters on the Enterprise first. Every episode we do, the first question is, whose story is it? Is it a Data story? Is it a Picard story? Is it a Troy story? And so on. And you have to start from that place. So it was never starting from the place of, well, here's this crazy alien world with this weird social situation or this sci-fi concept that the Enterprise gets tagged into. Like that could be a pitch, but then immediately you'd say, okay, well, that's a fascinating subspace phenomena that the Enterprise has encountered. But whose story is it? What, is it a Troy story? Why is it a Troy story? How does it affect her? what does this touch about her background? What is she going to learn in this episode? What are her decisions and what she's struggling with ethically through the show? What's her personal story? And that shift in focus kind of changed everything about the show, because suddenly the family of characters really became the family for the audience. You know, if you look at the first two seasons, it's not that they never did any character work, but it was really overshadowed by trying to do sci-fi ideas every week, and they were still trying to figure out, you know, how close to the original show they were going to be and how different. But Michael's dictate was, you know, it's about the characters. Every week we're going to talk about the characters, and that changed everything. It really made the next generation that we know and love really comes out of that philosophy of Michael's.
Yeah, it's fascinating now that you've crystallized what so many of us knew instinctively, that those first two seasons were more expositional narrative. And then when Michael came in, it became more character narratively driven. And that's what kind of brought the heart and soul of Next Generation to it, the next generation that we came to know and love.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. He really he was a writer's writer. I mean, he really loved writing. He loved being in the writers' room. He didn't run the best writers' room in terms of breaking stories. He could be like difficult or weird, or he didn't quite know how to talk to people, and so there could be, you know, conflict and turmoil, and, you know, you wanted to fight with you would fight. I fought with Michael a lot, you know. You could, but he would let you fight with him. You know, to his credit, you could argue with Michael.
That's cool.
But at a certain point, he realized that, you know, Jerry Taylor or Ira Bear on Deep Space Nine was a better person to be in the room day to day and run the room
And
to sort of, you know, instill, break the story. And there's a lot of sort of leadership skill in, you know, shepherding the writers and building a team and camaraderie and all that. And that just wasn't Michael's skill set. His skill set was the bigger picture, focus on the characters. What are we doing? What are we saying? He was very interested in the messages of Star Trek, what the themes were, the sort of idealism of it. You know, those were things that were very appealing to him, the hopefulness of it. He was also a big advocate for new voices and new writers. You know, after he bought my script, he decided that he was the one that decided, after he bought my spec script, that, hey, out there in the great beyond, among all the fans, there's all these potential stories and all these potential writers. So Michael instituted this open submission policy. He had the Paramount lawyers write up this release form, and if you filled out this release form, anyone could submit a script to the show. And we got literally thousands a year. I mean, I'm not kidding. 2,000 to 3,000 scripts a year. And Michael then hired, I want to say 2, maybe 3 full-time Star Trek readers who did nothing but read Star Trek spec scripts every day. Wow. And they would generate coverage on each and every one. And then that coverage and the scripts would be delivered to the writing staff. The writing staff would be expected to go through the coverage, which would say at the top, like, you know, recommend, should be considered, don't consider, reject, you know, bring into pitch. There was always a recommendation. And then we would read the coverage and we would decide whether to bring in a writer to pitch. And out of that process, you know, like Brian Fuller, or, you know, Jane Espenson, there were various writers that came in through that open process, because Michael believed in giving people their breaks. He liked giving someone their first script. Like me, he trusted. You know, I was a kid when I sold that first script. And the second one, it was just a couple months later, and he brought me on staff, and I was on staff with writers that were far more experienced than I was. They had decades of experience between them. And Michael gave me a break and put me in that room, and, you know, it was sink or swim. I mean, he was like pretty upfront about that too at the beginning. He's like, this may not work, you know, maybe this doesn't work and you're gone in 2 weeks, but we'll see, you know, but he was willing to take a chance.
It's amazing and really, I think, unique in the annals of how shows get written. I've never really heard of an analog to that in any other situation. It's fairly historically unique. But let's move on and just kind of talk about you and Star Trek. You had an amazing, intimate relationship with the show. You helped shape the canon of Star Trek in significant and wonderful ways. What are, first of all, the big strokes? What is it about Star Trek that excites you? What are the aspects of Star Trek that are, you know, so fascinating to you that really kind of drove you into the kind of stories and narratives that you wrote?
You know, I mean, it was I found it as a child, and I was enamored with its adventure, with its idealism, with the ethical dilemmas that the show, examined every week, the big questions that Captain Kirk and company would have to wrestle with. I love those characters, especially the big three, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, this friendship of these three men,
Yeah.
and their different aspects and their struggles. And it projected this future that I wanted to live in. Most science fiction, I think it's fair to say, paints a fairly depressing view of the future. It's really going to suck in most of these pieces. I mean, I love Blade Runner. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to live in the Blade Runner future particularly, but I want to live in the Star Trek future. And that aspirational quality of the show, I think, cannot be overstated. And I loved it. And I loved before world building was even a term, Gene had built this world that
Yeah.
made sense. And it really stood out, in terms of film science fiction. Lost in Space is a fun show. I love it too, but it makes no sense. It's just like crazy,
Yeah.
and it's there's nothing consistent about it. You don't even know how many floors are on the Jupiter 2. I mean, it's just like what, Whereas Star Trek had a consistent world that made sense. There was a Federation, there was a Starfleet, the Enterprise could do this and that, and here's how transporters worked, and here's how phasers worked, and there was a reality to it that was really impressive, and that the nerd in you could just throw yourself into, and there was no detail too small. And I loved that. Like I said, I got all the technical manuals and the blueprints of the Enterprise, and so it was a deep part of my childhood. And the older I got, the more I appreciated other aspects of it, the intellectualism of it, like I said, the ethical dilemmas that they wrestled with, the big questions, what's the right thing to do in certain circumstances, the political allegories that they were telling, oh, the Klingons are actually the Soviets. Oh, who knew, when I was a kid, that kind of stuff. So I always loved it. And to this day, there's still a part of me that, wishes I could put on a Starfleet uniform and get on a bridge of a ship. I mean, it's still with me. I love that universe so much.
That also is again part of your sort of that martial DNA that's inside of you, all of that service DNA, which is a great thing, and you never want to let go of that. That's really cool. Now, you had a wonderful love affair with the Klingon culture and gave us some of our most memorable, wonderful Klingon stories. You know, Deep Space Nine, but Next Generation in particular. What was it about the Klingon culture that you became so obsessive about? Because you really, I think, defined the Klingons for the modern Star Trek era. You really did.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was interesting because I certainly didn't set out to do that. But it was one of the things that was handed to me on my very first day on staff. When I first showed up on staff on day one, Michael gave me two projects. He says, "Okay, here's some scripts that need some work, and I'm not sure what to do with them. This one is called Yesterday's Enterprise, and then here's two that are about Worf. One is about Worf's brother. I think it was called Brother's Keeper. Here's another script that's called Sins of the Father, which is about Worf's father. What can we do with those?" And so from day one, I looked at the two Worf scripts, and immediately I was like, well, maybe we combine these into one script, like take some of the ideas of the brother and put them into the show about Worf dealing with the honor, the discommendation of his father's memory. And Michael liked that, and then he said, because remember, Michael was new to the Star Trek franchise. He says, "I don't really know that much about the Klingons and the Romulans. Can you just write me a memo telling me who they are?" And I was like, "Oh, well, this is going to be fun." So I sat down and I just for a moment, I got to define who the Klingons and the Romulans were. And in that initial memo, I said something like the Klingons in my head were sort of a combination of Vikings and samurai. That they had this sort of bigger than life idea of the Vikings and drinking and singing great songs, but also had a ritualistic, honor system, that was more like the samurai. There was sort of a combination.
And deadly weapons like batlets.
And deadly weapons. And then it was, Michael liked that as well. He said, "Okay, let's do it. So you write that episode." And as I was delving into it, so much had not been done at that point. There had been very little that really told you much about the Klingons.
Yeah.
In the original series, they're only in a handful of episodes. You hear only little tiny bits and pieces of their world or what their history was. And then you saw the Christopher Lloyd and those Klingons in Star Trek 3. And then there was, I think, one or two episodes of Next Gen at that point that had some Klingon guest stars. there wasn't a lot. So, and we were going to go to the Klingon homeworld for the first time in Sins of the Father. And so I got to sort of define the whole political structure. And that's where my love of history and my love of politics did actually come to the fore. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to pull this and this. And here's kind of, there's a Klingon council and there's a chancellor, and this is kind of how it works.
Yeah.
You know, and it all became really interesting. And once I had done that episode, because of the way it ended, where Worf is, you know, he's lost his honor. One day he has to return, says Picard. And okay, we're going to do a follow up to this. And then it was just, you know, it seemed natural that I was going to write the follow up. And from that point on, I became the Klingon guy on staff.
Yeah, it's amazing. And definitely a lot of samurai themes, kind of Eastern themes that percolated through, you know, your stories.
And I will have to, and I do have to give credit also, just a shout out to, I don't think the author's alive anymore, but there was an author named John Ford. I think it was John Ford, not the director, but there's an author who wrote a Star Trek novel called The Final Reflection. And it was, at that time when it came out in the 70s or early 80s, it was like the only tale that they'd ever published that was told literally completely from an alien point of view. It was from a Klingon point of view, and they had talked about being on the Klingon homeworld and what their culture was like. And I loved that book. And I was definitely influenced by some of the things that John Ford had written in that novelization.
Now, the time came when you finally had the opportunity, which is incredible, to write Star Trek or co-write Star Trek Generations. I'd love to hear how that came about. I mean, writing a Star Trek movie is incredible. And also your one-time writing relationship with Brannon, which was a storied thing. And the two of you guys together did some incredible things. I don't know if I ever told you, but I remember the summer that you two guys went off. Did I get this right? The Kapalua Bay Villas?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Maui to write, what were you writing? Were you writing
We're writing Generations. That's where we wrote it. First draft. That's where we wrote the first
I
draft.
remember at the time when you went off to do that, and then you came back. And by the way, I love Generations. First Contact is in a whole nother level, which I adore. But I thought Generations was a great film. And when it came, I just couldn't believe it when it came out that you guys had written it. So, how did that opportunity come up, and how did you approach such a monumental task?
It came up out of the blue. I mean, we were in the sixth season of Next Gen. We knew that that seven was probably going to be the last season, and that they were probably going to transition to a feature franchise. That's it's just what people knew around the show.
Right.
But it wasn't in our heads at all. Like, we didn't think about it. It wasn't a question. We just got this call one day that Rick Berman wanted to see Brandon and I in his office, and we didn't know why, or we in trouble, or why. And Rick just said, he had been tapped to produce the Next Gen movie, and he wanted us to write it, and we were like shocked. I mean, it was so like out of nowhere.
So great.
We were excited. It was amazing. It was an amazing thing. Just shocked.
Well, you guys,
and then it was like dive in.
Yeah, you deserved it. So, okay. So now you and Brandon are holed up in the Kapalua Bay Villas, and you're there. Okay. It's Maui. And it's like, well, we'd rather, be out on the beach, having a great time, but we've got to write a Star Trek film. So how did that feel like day to day sitting there in the villas? How do you approach the mechanics of banging out an epic script? How does that work? What's the magic?
Well, by that time, we had spent a fair amount of time working with Rick on the story and a story outline. So we didn't walk there with zero. We had broken basically what the big story was.
Yeah.
It was, long weeks and months of working through the story over and over again to Paramount and back and forth, and finally had an outline. And then, rented these villas in Maui and just holed up there for like a month or something to write the first draft. It was crazy, but it was beautiful. It's an amazing place, So out the window is this gorgeous, the ocean we could see from our places.
Yeah.
But we just sat there and worked. Like every single day we would work, and then we'd take a break and go out to dinner or something and hang out.
Walk along that coastline.
Walk along the coast, because you need to get out of the office and go talk it over. And what an amazing place to go do. So it was a perfect venue for it.
And then Generations came out. It was a success. It was incredible. And we've handed over the legacy of Star Trek now to the next generation. And then did All Good Things come out before First Contact or after?
It came out before, and Brandon and I were asked. That was another surprise. Like we were deep. We were almost a year into the work and the writing of Generations, but we're still shooting season 7 of the show.
Yeah.
And everyone on the show just assumed that Michael Piller would write the finale to Next Gen. Just
Yeah.
seemed obvious. But Michael was very deep into Deep Space Nine at that point,
Yeah.
and didn't feel like he had the time or bandwidth to do it. So he asked Brandon and I to write the finale. And we were shocked and thrilled to do that. But suddenly it was a crunch because we only had a month to write All Good Things and before it was shot. And we'd been working on Generations for like a year. So that 1 month where we were doing both projects was tough. But it just kind of, the All Good Things script just kind of flowed out of us. It was it was a great concept. We loved the show. You know, we knew what we wanted it to be. We had fun writing it. There were times when I can remember being in Brandon's house in Hollywood, and we were working on some scene like in engineering with Geordi. And it's a crisis, and he's yelling up to the bridge about the warp drive, and suddenly we were confused about which script we were writing the scene for. Wait a minute, are we in the scene for Generations, or is this? Because it's the same people in the same sets, and they're all yelling about the warp drive. It was just like, wait a minute, now I'm lost. Like, where are we?
But you know what? All Good Things is a love letter to Star Trek. I love it. It was a wonderful ending. You won the frickin' Hugo Award for it, buddy.
Yeah.
And, fans like me that, had grown up not only with Classic, but with Next Generation, thought it was a beautiful, fitting end to the series. And I don't think I've ever had a chance to tell you how grateful I was for that ending because I just loved it so much. I know there's, always going to be some people that, aren't necessarily happy with the way things turn out, like season 8 of Game of Thrones, whatever. I have nothing but admiration for how you guys can come up with a wrap up in the first place, much less that one that really was a rose, a love letter to Star Trek fans. So, I mean,
thank you. I really appreciate it.
And we were both really loved it.
We were both very proud of that show and the way it turned out.
Very
the cast was great. It was the perfect thing.
So great. Okay. I know our time is fleeting. Forgive me. Oh, this is all so important to me. First Contact. What a great movie. I don't want to get into a row with Star Trek fans, and we've got a lot of other stuff to cover, but I'm just saying First Contact is, if not the greatest Star Trek film, it is one of the 2 or 3 best Star Trek movies. I love that film. You really did the thing for the Borg that I always wanted to see, the Borg in a major motion picture, as well as all the fantastic character work that drove that movie. So just tell me a little bit about the experience of First Contact, because I just thought it was such a sensational film.
Well, I really appreciate that. Again, that was a great one. We
so
both
great.
loved that movie.
So great.
It came up, Generations was still in the theater when Paramount, it was successful enough that Paramount went to Rick and said, we want to do a second one. Yeah. Rick immediately called Brandon and said, let's do the next one. And we jumped on board. And doing the second one was more fun, frankly, than doing the first one. The first one had a lot of complicated things that the studio wanted. It was sort of a laundry list of things that had to be in Generations that made for sort of a convoluted story process of what it was going to be. But there was nothing like that in the second one. The second one was more, well, what do you want to do and how much fun can we have doing it? Yeah. So it really opened up the box of possibilities. And, Jonathan Frakes was a great director and he was engaged and
so great.
The whole cast was having fun in that movie. And it was a really, really great experience.
Yeah. Jonathan, by the way, is a fabulous director. I mean, I know now he really focuses on TV, but he really cut his teeth on that film. And I think he could have had a career in feature film directing, but for whatever his path took him, he has been one of the most prolific and wonderful directors in television now for decades.
He's very talented and he's a total pro. John is a complete professional. He works very collaboratively. Crews love him. Cast love him. No one has a bad word to say about Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah. So anyway, First Contact, such a great film, huge success. Now, Star Trek went through several more permutations that you were either very associated with or tangentially associated with. I don't really have time to run through too much more of that continuity. I hate to
That's
miss out
okay.
on a whole portion of your career. You were pretty involved with DS9, but just sort of marginally with Voyager. Is that right?
Yeah, I did 5 years at Deep Space, which was amazing. That was
Yeah.
an amazing experience too. Very
Yeah.
different than Next Gen. Ira instead of Michael or Jerry, and completely different kind of show and what our ambitions were for the show to really push the boundaries of Star Trek on what it could be, and to really explore and take risks with the characters, with the stories, with an overarching story that Star Trek had never done, to do
Yeah.
more serialized,
Which
to go
was
into
what
a
was so
war.
great. The whole
It was
Dominion
really
War. Yeah.
great. The
Yeah.
Dominion War arc is fantastic. I mean, that was an amazing experience. And yeah, Voyager, I was on Voyager just for a couple of months. It was an unhappy experience. I probably shouldn't have taken the job in the first place.
Yeah.
It was time to leave. I should have just left
Yeah,
after
but I
Deep
don't want to
Space.
diminish DS9 because really, for those of us that had wanted the long arc story, the whole Dominion War saga was so incredible and so
Oh
satisfying
yeah.
at the end of it. It was a great achievement. And also, again, I think, Ira really deserves a lot of praise
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
everything that happened then. But anyway,
Absolutely.
okay, so Voyager didn't work out. What did you do next?
The next thing I did, I was briefly a consultant on a show called Good versus Evil for a USA Network, which was a lot of fun. And then I went to Roswell,
Yeah,
and Jonathan Frakes was the connection over there because he was one of the
yeah,
executive producers. I came to Roswell in its second season. Worked with Jason Katims, who's an amazing writer showrunner.
incredible
Learned a lot
talent.
from Jason,
Yeah.
and
And
he
that
kind of
second
handed the
season
show
was
off to me.
that second season was a great show.
Yeah, I thought it was a
Yeah.
great show. Good cast, really
Was.
fun, and very different from what I had done in Star Trek, obviously.
What happened in the third season? The show got moved over to UPN. What?
Yeah, got picked up by you. It was on the WB originally, and then
Yeah.
UPN, WD didn't want to, WB did not want to pick it up, and so UPN stepped in and picked it up, and they were the ones who ran it, who broadcast it for its third season.
How did Carnival come about for you? Because I loved Carnival. I loved that show.
Carnival, I got a call that HBO was looking for someone to showrun it. That they had this pilot, uh, and they were interviewing different showrunner candidates. I went in and met with the head of HBO at the time, and did not get the job, but still liked me and liked my work and wanted me to come over as as a consultant to sort of do part time in the writers' room. And I said sure because it was HBO. It was like why not? And it was a great
Yeah.
concept for the show.
Yeah.
But that simultaneous with that, I had sold the Battlestar Galactica miniseries to
Right.
Sci-Fi Channel. So
Yeah.
when I was writing the miniseries, I was doing part-time duty in the Carnival writers' room. So there was those two projects kind of overlapped. And then what happened was before they started shooting the first season of Carnival, they let the showrunner go, and they asked me to take over. So then I became the showrunner for
That's how
Carnival.
it happened. And by the way, it was such a fascinating, imaginative, different show. Nick Stahl and Clancy Brown, those
Yeah,
guys were fabulous. It was just
beautiful show.
nothing like that, really. So imaginative. And as fate and serendipity would have it, on that show, you met a beautiful and talented costume designer,
Yes.
Terry Dresbach.
Yeah,
And little did you know at the time how she would become such a huge force, not only in your personal life, but your professional life as well.
that's right. Met Terry on Carnival, and the rest is history, as they say.
Hi, guys, I'm Adam Malin. Welcome to the Creation Entertainment Pop Culture Cinema Squad. I'm Adam Malin, joined as ever by my illustrious cohort, Miss Kit Bowen.
Hi, guys.
And we're back again,
We're
Kit.
back again, Adam.
Awesome as always.
Yes.
I love doing these with you.
I know I do too. I hope you guys enjoy them too, because we have a blast.
We do, and I mean, Kit's got an encyclopedic knowledge of cinema, so I can lean on her to do the heavy lifting. Anyway,
Well, I think you do a lot of heavy lifting yourself as well. It's something you're passionate about.
thank you, dear. Now, Kit, I'm super excited because one of my favorite auteurs and TV showrunners has an incredible new TV series. The great Noah Hawley has Alien Earth coming on FX in just a couple of weeks.
Yep. Very excited about
We're
it.
very psyched, and as we started anticipating this, we said, you know what? We love Fargo. We've loved it we loved the original movie, right,
Yes.
by the Coen brothers.
Coen Brothers, yes.
And then, if anything, Noah improved on that with this incredible series, which has currently run 5 seasons, right?
5 seasons, yeah.
5 seasons. And so in honor of Noah's new series, Alien Earth, we thought we would do a deep dive on season 5 of Fargo, which was probably ended a few months ago, but was such an incredible season.
Yeah,
Kit.
it really was. I mean, let's just back up real quick.
Please.
Because I've loved all of the seasons, except for maybe season 4 with the Chris Rock going
All right.
back in time. That was sort of my least favorite. But the original season 1 with Billy Bob Thornton as this just
Wow.
horrible person, but so good. I mean, I can't tell you a villain that I'll never forget. I mean, he haunts me. And then season 2, they went back to the 70s. We had Jean Smart as the matriarch of this crime family. I believe it was the younger version played
Isn't
by
it
Patrick.
Michael Hogan is her husband?
Maybe
from
so.
Battlestar
Yeah,
Galactica?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a fantastic season. Fantastic. And then the 3rd season,
Oh, wow.
that was Ewan McGregor plays twin brothers, and the bad guy was David Thewlis.
Who's
and
a
he was
despicable, disgusting person
Oh.
with his toothpick and his rotted teeth. And
It was just awful. Yeah,
Great, though.
and then we said the 4th season with Chris Rock was good, but it just was, I don't know, wasn't quite the same. Jesse Buckley was very good.
well, it was a
too.
period piece. So,
Yeah.
although they're all in a certain sense period pieces,
They are.
but it was more of a historical thing.
Right. So now,
Season
season
5.
5. Woo!
Now, for those of you that have not seen the series, there will be many spoilers here, so you might want to see the 5th season first. But it's really fantastic. Anyway, let's set it up. It's set in 2019 in Minnesota and North Dakota, and
Match.
it features 2 families, the Lyons family and the Tillmans family, and focuses on Dorothy Lyon, a seemingly ordinary Midwestern housewife with a mysterious past.
Yes, and
Kit.
Juno Temple just played her to a T. She was, she's an actress I've, really liked. She was in Ted Lasso, but here I think she just bloomed.
Now, don't you think that one of the central motifs of the Fargo series and the movie is a strong, dominant female?
Yes. Very
Hero.
much.
Hero.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You had the sheriff in the 1st season.
Yeah.
Yeah, each show has a very strong female lead.
And there is a strong female sheriff in the show,
Yes.
but it's this poor protagonist, Dot,
Yeah.
Juno Temple, who has to overcome incredible adversity
Yes.
on the series. She has a run.
But she has a certain set of skills.
She does. Well, after some very peculiar run-ins with authorities, her past begins to resurface, and it turns out that she has an extremely abusive ex-husband, North Dakota Sheriff Roy Tillman, played by the great.
Great. John Hamm. He was, John Hamm is another one.
We love John Hamm.
He surprises you
He's so
in a lot
great.
of things. And here he gets to play a real villain, but he plays it very charismatically, and you can understand. So, yes.
But
she's escaped
scary
from
as
him.
shit at the
Scary.
same time, though.
So scary.
And I guess he was married to her, and thank God she got out from that abusive relationship, and he's been hunting her for years.
Yes, because he's like this sort of pillar of, moral faith and belief in marriage and all of this kind of stuff. But of course, he's just a complete, maniac and maniacal, a wife abuser is what he is.
Misogynistic,
Yes.
believes he's above the law, even though he's a sheriff. He's kind of like these Pacific Northwest, almost neo-Nazi archetypes.
Yeah.
Who, thinks he can control everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, also, someone who seems to be an antagonist at the beginning of the show, but later turns out to actually help Dot, is the great Jennifer Jason Leigh as the matriarch of the Lyon family, Lorraine Lyon.
Yes, so she's Dot's mother-in-law. So Dot is married to her husband, and like we said, the setup is that they have a very normal sort of life, and she's loves her husband. They have
Dot
a
is
cute
married
daughter,
to her
son.
son.
Yeah, Wayne.
Right.
And yeah, they've got this sort of simple life, but Lorraine comes from a different set of skills herself. She's very on she's a businesswoman, and
She's a debt collection CEO.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And she thinks her son has married beneath him, basically. So she doesn't really like Dot.
And she actually thinks that Dot is a fraud
Right.
after him for the family money.
Right.
Yeah. Now, also thrust into the story is the first person, this actually a couple of guys, but one of them, to initially chase Dot, looking to kill her, I guess, or capture her.
Yes.
It almost looks like they're trying to kill her, but or capture her, is the mysterious old Munch.
So now he's a henchman of Roy's, right? Yeah. So
he's a henchman of Roy's, Sam Spruill, incredible actor, but there's so much more to him than just being a henchman.
Yeah.
He's the weirdest dude in the world.
And he has a very sort of supernaturally weird past, right?
Yeah, as well as an incredible affectation in the way that he talks. How do you describe that pidgin English, the way that he talks? It's so crazy.
It's, it kind of reminded me of the Fargo, the movie. That very stilted Unquin, that kind of.
Yeah. Now, we will, in the middle of the series, get some history on Old Munch, and indeed, he has sort of been cursed to be somewhat immortal
Right.
over the course of 500 years by a witch, and has sort of, passed down to this point in our modern time, where he's sort of casting about, still with his own kind of moral code.
Yeah, he's cursed for eating other people's sins from 500 years ago in Wales.
He's
so
a
Welsh,
sin
so
eater.
there's a Welsh thing going on. That's
Yeah.
probably where that affectation is. Yeah.
So adding to this
so
somewhat motley
interesting.
crew of people that work for Roy is his son, Gator, played by the great Joe Keery. A lot of us know Joe, of course, from
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Very cute. He also has a very good band. I actually like his music a lot. So
He's Roy's son and deputy, and he's kind of loyal but ineffective.
also not very smart.
Yeah, and a dummy. But ultimately, though, he does betray the dad. The dad is constantly picking at him, putting him down. It's really, really kind of sick.
Yeah.
So when Dorothy is first attacked at the beginning of the series, there is an officer on hand, Deputy Whitfar, played by Lamorne Morris, whom I love.
Yeah.
From That Girl, right?
New Girl.
New Girl. That Girl, New Girl. Yeah.
Marlo Thomas, that's that girl. And my new girl is Zoe Deschanel.
Yeah. And it was great in that series. It's a fantastic trooper who really realizes that there's something going on here that's below the surface. Dot doesn't want to give up any of this the backstory because she's been brutalized and she just wants to get away from it.
Yep.
He knows that something's wrong and he kind of pursues the story as her advocate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and Fargo's also there's a running theme of officers or police officers or detectives or whatever who are much smarter than their superiors, and they actually know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So Lamar Morris's character, and then also there's I think she's Native American, or maybe she's Indian.
No, she's Indian. We're talking about Deputy Indira Olmsted,
Yes.
played by Richa Morjani.
Yes.
A Scandia police deputy who also is investigating Dot's case.
Right.
And she reminds me a lot of some of the archetypal strong female police officers that have been on the series.
Who know a lot more than their superiors think they know. Carrie Coon played a great one in season 3.
Carrie Coon is the bomb. She's fabulous.
Yeah. So, and of course, Frances McDormand, we have to just bow down to.
We always bow
Frances,
down to
who-
Frances. She's a force of nature. Yeah. Now, also additionally, the Lyon family has a family lawyer.
Yes.
Who works for them, Danish Graves. It's a great name. And played by the great Dave Foley.
Good,
Now,
good, great to see him again too.
He's
you
a
know?
comedian,
I
but this
know.
is like absolutely a dramatic role.
Yeah.
And he's so great.
He's so great. I was like, Dave Foley, what are you doing here? Yeah, he does a fantastic job.
Yeah, yeah. So, as in several seasons of Fargo, there are certain universal themes that get explored. And in toxic masculinity
Yep.
and domestic violence
Yep.
is a recurring sequence. And in her saga to escape Roy, she ultimately decides that the only way to get past him is to go through him.
Right.
So she decides to preemptively go on the hunt for him
Right.
rather than wait for him or his henchmen to get her.
That's right.
And leads her on almost a spirit quest where she has what turns out, I think, to be a dream, a sequence wherein she visits a kind of a commune
Yes.
of battered women
Right.
who have sort of reconciled their lives through the use of a dramatic device, which is a puppet show,
Yeah.
where they have to build and carve out and create the puppets themselves and then reenact their trauma
It's kind of a weird
in front
deal.
of the rest of the women in the group. And it's just...
Trust me, it's a weird segue or
It's
a weird
great, though.
section.
It's
but
great,
it makes sense to the rest of the
It's
story.
amazing. And Noah Hawley, at his best, it's so bizarre, but I think it does end up being a dream sequence
Yes.
ultimately,
Yes.
what it is.
Yes. Yes.
Debt is also a recurring theme
Yes.
in Fargo, but in this
Money.
situation.
Yes. Money
yeah,
not having it. Yes.
And always violence.
Always.
It's a very, very violent series.
Yeah. No. It definitely. I mean, like you said, he not only is he great at crafting characters, hands down, but he definitely shares the same sensibility as the Coen brothers. And
Yeah.
the Coen brothers are just notoriously known for creating these creating these characters and then putting them in a very violent situation.
Yeah. But there
just the best
still
at it.
is a good that we all
Yes.
believe in.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
There's a good, and good does typically triumph over evil in the end, but not without a lot of collateral
No.
damage, And then also Noah dabbles in the supernatural, and I'm like, in season 2, there was was it season 2? A
Yes.
flying saucer,
That's right.
alien. I mean,
Yeah,
he's the,
that.
it doesn't surprise me that he's the guy that's doing Alien Earth, because he has some of these recurring trippy.
He's probably
spacey.
really excited to be doing Alien.
I mean,
Earth.
he's really well. Let's not forget that he also had an unused script for Star Trek.
Oh.
Noah wrote a script for Star Trek that was
Whoa.
not picked up by Paramount.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding. And the word is that it was fabulous too.
Well, which set of people was he using? Was it a Kelvin? Was it
I
a?
don't know.
Huh.
I don't know.
Huh.
There's not much information about it, but the word is that it was a great script, and they
Ugh.
Paramount missed the ball on that one.
Well, Noah, if we ever get a chance to talk to you, you got to tell us about the Star Treks.
Well, Noah, we're coming for you. One of these days, we got to get you as a guest on the show because we love you and we revere you. You're such a talent. Hopefully, we're working at Creation on doing something with Alien Earth.
We are.
Of course, we work with Noah's longtime composer, the fabulous Jeff Russo. So we should just as good a time as any to mention that Jeff Russo has, done all the music for the Fargo series. He also does music for Star Trek, and he's doing music for Alien Earth.
Yeah.
And Jeff is such a stellar talent.
Yes.
And the music and the moods that he sets up on Fargo, oh my God, they can go anywhere from kind of elation to terrifying.
Yes. Yes.
Dread, and builds up to these climaxes that are just so intense.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Anyway, so as I said, Noah, with the whole supernatural element, certainly Old Munch
So much.
is about as supernatural as you get, and it's
But
strange.
so you have this incredible, climactic ending to season 5, and there's a big shootout, and good does it eventually win over, and Roy Tillman is destroyed, and that kind of thing.
Well, he ends up in jail.
He ends up in jail.
Although that's almost a fate worse than death.
Yes.
After
Lorraine.
Lorraine's gets him set up in there in a bad
Yeah.
way.
Yes.
But I just wanted to step back for a second and say that supernatural element that Noah, I mean, it's on the outside, it seems almost like a procedural, but then there's always this esoteric metaphysical underbelly.
Yes.
For those of you that saw Noah's short-lived series Legion, there also were some very metaphysical, supernatural elements to that. That's a very wild series. I just love that
Yeah,
series.
it got a little
Dan
too much
Stevens.
for me towards, but that first season of Legion was just
Fascinating.
spectacular.
And Jean Smart, of course,
Yes.
was the female lead of that series.
Yes.
Just as she was so fantastic as the crime boss
in
in
season
two.
2. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about season 5 is that it definitely brings back elements associated with earlier seasons. Of course, the investigative plotline, mystery, and a great sense of dark humor.
Oh yeah.
But there also is this sense of hospitality and forgiveness, particularly in the part of Dot, who's been savaged.
Yes.
And after all of this, the family is reunited. Oh, there's a great side B story about her husband being electrocuted. In the process of Dot trying to protect her home and her daughter.
Because she's actually kind of very kick-ass, to be honest.
Yeah.
She
So
knows a lot of stuff.
She sets up all these traps in the house to nail would-be assailants, which are hysterical. Kind of like Home Alone a little bit.
And Wayne's like, what are you doing? She goes, oh, this is a cheaper way to, instead of having security cameras, this is cheaper.
So she's got like open electrical, light bulbs and electrical lines that are all live,
right,
all around the windows. And her poor schlub of a husband, who's understandably a loving husband,
Yes.
a good husband to her.
Yes.
She finally found
the
a
right
good marriage, a good guy. And, he accidentally gets electrocuted. He's fried. And I thought he would just completely lost his marbles for good. But eventually he kind of gets it back together.
Yeah, he does. He gets it back together.
But she's so sweet and nurturing to him, even in the face of that. And anyway, when at the end of all this, when the family's kind of reunited, and just when we think it's all over, who shows up at the front door but Old Munch.
So I'm thinking in my head, No Country for Old Men, with Javier Bardem visiting the girlfriend or the wife.
I thought immediately of Old Country for No Men.
Josh Brolin, I forgot her name, to the actress, and he shows up, to her house, and she's like, you don't have to do this, and he's like, well, I'll give you a choice.
Well, for him, it's just flip the coin. And by the way, Javier Bardem is terrifying in that movie.
He's probably one of the best villains of all time.
It's so scary with
particular
that gun that he blows people's heads out with, the cattle killing gun.
Cattle killing.
It's really, really bad.
Anton something, I've forgotten what. Anyway,
but
great character.
Old Munch shows up, and he also, he's going through this moral internal debate, even while he's there with them, as to whether he wants to kill the family or whatever.
Because he's seeking revenge, basically, because she kind of maims him in one of their earlier encounters.
She does mess him up.
He's like seeking revenge, but in Dot's inevitable way, and she is a great character. She's like, I understand why you're here. She gets it. She goes, but why don't we sit down and have a dinner together? And he he explains that because of the sins he's eaten, he's been cursed with this. She says, well, here's a meal prepared with love and hospitality and forgiveness. And if you eat this meal, maybe your curse will be broken, basically, is what she's saying. And then she hands him a biscuit. He puts it in his mouth, he eats it, and he slowly smiles. And that is like the end of the show. And
it's like a meal of forgiveness. Yeah.
Anyway, it was so beautiful.
The series was incredible. It got a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, I mean, obviously, people loved it.
Yeah. I wonder, is there going to be any more?
The word is that if he finds the right story, he's willing to do another one. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
He's always left the door open if he finds an incredible story. Now, I think, he had such inspiration for this season.
Yeah.
That, again, when the time comes, the inspiration comes, I'm hoping he will do another one.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, he's super busy with Alien Earth.
which looks really terrifying to me.
I mean, we're going to watch this series. You're going to see aliens with the body of a crab and the head of a social worker. You're not going to, it's so horrible, you're not even going to be able to bear it. There's this, I was telling you about this one alien creature. Well, see, of course, the Whalen Corporation and all of its beneficence scours the universe for different destructive alien
So it's not
series.
just a xenomorph that they're looking for. Apparently they're looking for all kinds of
destructive
weird,
aliens
horrible,
that they
destructive
can
aliens,
bioengineer to use for their devious bidding, whatever it is. And their ship with all their specimens crashes on Earth, of course. And so we have to deal with them. And we've been watching these clips, and I like the multi-eyeball thing. There's like this eyeball that's got tentacles, right? And it slaps itself onto your eye. It uses its tentacles to dig into your brain, and now you're one of them. I always love the "you're one of them" things, which is like,
well, the face huggers alone were just the most terrifying thing ever to be created in a alien monster movie.
so invasive.
Even more so than the xenomorphs themselves, with these face huggers.
Well, and then the chest burster is
The face huggers are the ones who put the egg.
Poor John Hurd. I mean, it's like, they're sitting there eating eggs. It's like, anyway, listen, we love Alien. We'll probably do some kind of a deep dive on the Alien
We
series,
absolutely will. So turn in for that. But make sure you watch it ahead of time so that we're not giving anything away. But yeah, we're absolutely going to deep dive that one.
And eagerly anticipating the new Alien Earth TV series from the great Noah Hawley, featuring music by our buddy Jeff Russo. But in the meantime, if you haven't seen the 5 seasons of Fargo, go and see it, because they're really amazing. And
You can skip 4.
you'll fall in love with them. And like I say, Noah Hawley is one of the great auteurs and talents in the business today. So
absolutely.
So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And Kit, as always, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, and let us know too if there's anything any of the Fargos that you loved, and let us know in the comments.
Or any continuity issues or things like that you want to talk about. We're very interested as always.
Absolutely.
So. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, folks. Bye-bye.
How great is Ron Moore? I mean, unbelievable, right?
I love the guy.
His career.
Every single thing he writes, I want to watch.
I know, it's true. Well, stay tuned for part 2 of the Ron D. Moore interview with our co-CEO, Adam Malin, which will be coming up soon. And then what else do we got on the docket here, Ryan?
Well, speaking of Ronald D. Moore, what a great excuse to talk about STLV, Trek to Las Vegas. That is August 6th through 10th. It's coming up right now. We've got like over 150 amazing guests, one of whom is Mr. Ronald D. Moore. We also have a Battlestar Galactica convention that is September 19th through 21st in New Jersey, I believe. Absolutely check these out, people. This is very important. I'm a gigantic nerd, and I can't wait for these conventions. I'm serious. They're going to be the best thing ever. Go to creationent.com for information and tickets. Get some photo ops, some autographs. That's creationent.com. Kit's going to be there.
I am going to be there with bells on.
I'm going to be there with
Battlestar Galactica
cosplay on.
It's all good. Can't wait. It's going to be a very exciting fall season of shows. So definitely check out all the different ones we've got coming up.
Absolutely.
We've got from Supernatural to Vampire Diaries to Battlestar Galactica and more. So check it out.
Thanks, everybody. Remember, over 150 guests at Trek to Las Vegas. Go. We'll see you there.
Yes.
And thanks for hanging out with us on the Creation Entertainment Podcast.
Bye-bye.